Welcome everyone to the Eridanus Student Leader Orientation. I'm Mary Alice. You've seen me before at regular student orientations, so leader orientation. But if you are new, if you weren't able to make the orientation, I'm the class coordinator with Code the Dream. And of course, we have your fearless leader, Diana, on the call with us. Big thumbs up. So feel free to shout out with any questions that you have, either in the chat or unmute and interrupt to be able to share any questions that you have throughout. And I'm going to go ahead and start sharing, and then we'll get rolling. Okay, yeah, that's the right screen. Everybody see that okay? You can just put up a thumbs up. Okay, good. I'm seeing some nods. Wonderful. All right. So let's just go ahead and dive right in. What was the purpose of our student leader program when we decided to come up with this? It was around fall of 2022 is when we started implementing them. And the program goals are really to help build community within each individual class, help keep everyone on track, because sometimes if you have a study buddy that you're accountable with, then it helps you kind of stay on track with courses or things, or reach goals, to check in with each other, that kind of a thing. So keeping everyone on track. And then for the people who are student leaders, is to help you develop leadership skills. So communication styles, how to get information for people and relay information effectively to others, and just sort of time management and organizational skills, sort of those other tangents that go along with any kind of leadership role or responsibility. So that was the purpose of the program. Let's talk a little bit about your expectations as a student leader. We expect you to keep up with the material yourself. It's kind of hard to help somebody that might be on a current week if you're a couple weeks behind. So you do want to stay on track with the class. But that being said, we also want you to have your learning put first. So if you reach a point in the class where you're like, I really just need to focus on my learning, then that's totally fine. Just let Diana or myself know. So that way we can take you off of student leader responsibilities so you can just focus on your learning. Maintain confidentiality. Students might share information about their home life, their financial situation, anything like that that might be causing any kind of hiccup in their process of being able to proceed along with the class as expected. So just keep that information between yourselves. Only share that information if it's something that's critical for Diana or I to know in order to help them. So if they aren't able to pay bills that month and so their internet's getting turned off or something and they need to have an alternate access means, then you can just let us know, hey, money's tight right now for them. Is there any way that we can help get them access to the internet so they can keep getting things going? So that's just sort of an example of what I mean by maintain confidentiality. Check in with each other for support too. So you can be student leaders to the people who aren't student leaders, but you can be student leaders to each other as well, to be able to support each other. If you don't know the answer to a question that somebody might have asked, as far as like, hey, where's that assignment submission form link at again? And another student leader does, check in with them, share that information across each other. Always exemplify the Code the Dream values of inclusion, community, growth, and impact. We'll dive a little bit more deeply into those in just a minute to kind of talk about what those mean. And then we figure you'll spend probably around 3 hours per week outside of the work that you're doing as a student in the class on the student leader tasks, as far as just communicating with students to be able to check in with them. And you'll hold a 1-hour study session too, where students can just kind of have an open forum where they can come together and compare notes from mentor sessions, or get clarification on something that they might still feel a little fuzzy on. Anything along those lines will be helpful in that student study session. So that'll be a third of that 3-hour expectation. You are not expected to answer any technical questions that you don't know. If you don't feel comfortable answering any technical questions, even if you think you know the answer or you do know the answer, then that's fine too. And you are definitely not expected to fix any student problems. So like I had mentioned, if somebody runs into an issue with having access to the either equipment or connection that they need to be able to participate in class, that's not something you have to solve. You don't need to be buying anybody a new computer. You don't need to be loaning your computer to anybody. You don't need to be paying bills for anybody, anything like that. Just refer them to us so that way we can reach out to the resources that we have in place and see if we can get them any kind of help or assistance. Questions about expectations. I always like to go over these first just to kind of give you an overview of what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And feel free to shout out if there are questions that you're like, what about this situation? Good. Okay. All right. I did just want to pull up my chat in case I'm missing any questions there. I don't want to miss anything. Oh, good. There is a question in there. Okay. The 1 hour sessions is something that you can host as a group or each student leader individually. So yeah, we'll talk a little bit more in depth about the study sessions here in just a minute. But yeah, you can do it either way, Alberto. Either you and another student leader or leaders can kind of come together and host a student study session together. Or if you just want to fly solo and have one on your own because your time doesn't match the times that other people are available, then that's fine too. So you can do it either way. We're pretty flexible. Okay, so let's talk about those core values. Inclusion, we want to make sure that everybody feels welcome. Everybody has different perspectives, different backgrounds. So having people share those experiences, becoming a part of the team, feeling like they're a part of the network is always really important. We want to embrace any kind of differences between each other to be able to help give us a better understanding of where people are coming from. Sometimes you get more creative solutions that way. So definitely embody that inclusion throughout your interactions with anybody in the program. Community. So the way you can help with the community building is periodically just put something up in your outlet channel, like Diana's been doing so far. Really awesome as far as like, hey, what's everybody up to this weekend? Or, you know, what's your favorite question we had to answer on this week's assignment versus the one that drove you battiest or whatever. So anything like that that can kind of help foster community and help people not feel like they're just an island out there floating in the internet space doing this class by themselves is what we're going for. We don't want people feeling isolated in classes. Growth. So if there's knowledge that you have that you can share and impart with others, and even better, if you can share the knowledge in a way that helps them really grasp a concept or see a new way of approaching a problem or finding an answer for themselves, then that's where you'll get a lot of growth. And of course, you'll be growing too because you'll have to be explaining things that you might have learned recently. And so that's an opportunity for you to be able to grow in your understanding and in how you communicate what you understand as well. And then impact, we just want everybody to have a positive impact to be able to advance yourselves in your studies and in your understanding of programming and development. Questions about our core values or kind of what they'll look like as in your student leader role? Okie dokie. All right, so then let's break it down as far as what your responsibilities are looking like. You know what's expected of you now, you know about our culture, and that we want you to be embodying that in these roles. So your responsibilities are going to be step up, study up, and follow up. So the step up is just being helpful, friendly, kind to your classmates. So really fostering that inclusion and that community portions that we were talking about. The study up is hosting a 1 hour study hall each week. And these study halls do not need to be structured in any way, shape, or form. If you have a topic or an icebreaker or something like that that you want to bring to it just to kind of help people feel more comfortable and start conversations and things like that, you're welcome to do that. If you want to have a theme to your study session, like, hey, let's just focus on question 3 of the assignment that's due this week because everybody seems to be struggling with that one and let's all work together on it or whatever, then you can do a theme if you want to. But mostly we just want it to be a forum where students can come together to be able to bounce ideas off of each other, compare notes. If somebody's a little bit behind, then they can work with a student that's on track or ahead to help catch up. So it's just an opportunity for you all to meet each other and get to know each other, and just a nice avenue to kind of explain what you're learning to somebody else, or to make sure that what you learned is what somebody else learned and that everybody's on the same page. So that's really the purpose of that study hall each week. And as Alberto had asked earlier, you can either do them together with a couple of you leading the charge for these study sessions together, or you can do them individually. You'll use the same mentor session Zoom link as the mentors use, so you'll just need to pick a time when there isn't already a mentor session scheduled for, and try and pick something that's consistent for you each week, where if you know you're always going to be working on your homework assignments every Tuesday night at 5 in the afternoon or whatever, then that would be a good time for you to be able to have it. And you can even just have the Zoom call on in the background. And if somebody pops on with a question, then you can talk about it and work things out. So it's just an hour of dedicated time when you'll be online to be able to be with other students, basically. Um, and then the follow-up portion. So Diana, as the cohort instructional leader, she'll be keeping track of student progress and kind of monitoring that. And if people start to fall behind, then she'll be able to let you all know who the students are that are falling behind, so that way you can reach out to them individually. Sometimes when life is getting chaotic, it's really hard to reach out for additional help because you're just keeping your head above water. So that's why we want student leaders to be reaching out to students that are behind to find out, are you doing okay? Is it just a really rough week this week because there's a million things going on in your life? Or are you struggling with the concepts that we need to intervene and get a mentor in to be able to help you with it? Or are you having some other obstacle like lack of access to a machine, lack of access to internet, language barrier issues, anything like that? We want to be able to know about those so we can help get the resources out to that student that is needed. Questions about the responsibilities, the step up, study up, follow up. Anybody have anything they want to ask?
What happens when we feel all these things?
Yeah, exactly, right?
Do I just
That's
feel like, "Hey, Mary Alice, listen."
yes, when if or when, and might be both, who knows? If you're feeling overwhelmed with the student leader responsibilities, reach out to Diana, let her know, hey, can I put my student leader responsibilities on hold for a week or two until I catch up? Or you can be like, no, this is I've bit off more than I can chew here. I just want to be a student. That's fine. Then just let Diana know so that way she can pull you off of the student leader channel, and you'll just be regular student and be able to just focus on your studies. Does that
Yeah.
help answer the question, or do you have additional questions for me, Dorian?
No, that was it. That was the
Okay,
question.
perfect. Yep. Yep. Sometimes life just is interesting like that. Okay, so what do each of these responsibilities look like in the context of the class and in the context of being a student leader? So being kind and helpful and attentive, compassionate, patient with all of your fellow students, sending the occasional motivational message or a conversation starter in Slack. You can also step up by identifying resources that other students might need to point them in the right direction. So if somebody's having trouble with JavaScript specifically, and there was a really great tutorial or resource or something that you've used or that a mentor mentioned in your session, feel free to share that information with them. Um, there's so much information out there on the internet, and like I'm sure we haven't even touched the tip of the iceberg at Code the Dream as far as resources available in other languages for tutorial videos that can kind of help demonstrate and explain concepts, things like that. So if there are any resources out there that you know that you've heard of that you can share, please do so. And then refer any students to mentors for technical questions. So if they're asking code specific questions that you're like, I don't know, I'm just learning this myself, then just make sure that they're aware of this is how you get in touch with a mentor. You can set up a one-on-one, you can sign up for a group session. If there aren't any times available at times when you're available, then talk to Diana, encourage them to reach out so that way they can get what they need. Questions about stepping up? All right. So the study up, host the weekly study session, communicate when your session is. So I'll post a an announcement in the student leaders channel here after our orientation is done that just says put your day and time and your time zone for when you want to hold your session here. You can also use that channel to be able to confer with each other. So if Sergey and Andrea want to do a session together, then you all can kind of chat that way or direct message each other to find out what day and time you all want to do a session together, for example. So just communicate who's going to be doing the session, what day and time it's going to be, include your time zone so that way we know that we get it the right time zone for everybody. And then at the end of your study sessions, then you'll fill out just a short form to show attendance. The reason we want you to track attendance for who shows up to your study sessions is A, so we can measure if it's effective having, however many student study sessions that we have. And if there are more than people are attending, then we can scale back and you'll have a little less that you have to do. But primarily, we want to see it so that if a student isn't able to make the mentor session times, but they are making study session times, then that's still showing that they're actively participating in the class. And so that counts in their favor whenever we're looking at attendance and evaluating if a student is working to stay on track with class or if they've just kind of ghosted us. So be sure to do the attendance, so that way we know who participated in your session. And then also on the form, there'll be a spot that you can mark if there needs to be any kind of follow-up. So if you hold your student study session and you all are talking about, this concept of arrays is just really challenging for all of us. I wonder if there's some other resource or like an audio visual or a TED talk or something on it. Then you can just mark, yes, we do want follow up from our study session, and then there'll be a spot for you to be able to list what that is. So either can you share more resources on this particular topic, or if there was a particular student in your study session that was like, I'm just really struggling with wrapping my head around how modulus works or something along those lines, then you can put down just the student's name and what the topic was or what the item was that they needed help with. So that way we can reach out to our mentors and say, hey, is somebody free, Wednesday night at 6 when this student might be free, that you can meet with them about this particular concept that they're struggling with. So you don't have to have those specific plans in place for your study sessions. Just working on material together, coding on your own and asking questions as they come up, anything like that is perfectly fine. You don't have to feel like there's any structure or formality to your study sessions at all. Questions about the study sessions that anybody wants to ask about? Okay, I want to demonstrate real quick the logistics of it, just so that way you know sort of what'll be going on. So we'll add to your group mentor sign up sheet, we'll be adding in here, say, I'm just gonna pick on Andrea again real quick. Say Andrea wants to have her sessions on Fridays. So we'll put student study session here. So that way all the students know that this is a student study session, not a mentor session. And then we'll put your name or your names if there are multiple of you doing a student study session at a time. And then we'll just do meet at, and then we'll have the times for what time your hour-long student study session will start. And that way students will be able to know, okay, this is just a students only group versus this is a experienced developer mentor that's kind of facilitating this whole session. So that's how the schedule will be posted and how students will be able to sign up, and they'll sign up for it just the same way that they are signing up for sessions. And that way you'll have an idea of, are people going to be coming to my session tonight or not? If nobody signs up, you can just post in the class announcements channel and be like, hey, I saw nobody signed up for my session tonight. Does, if, I've got plenty of work I've got to get done, so I'm going to cancel my session for the evening since nobody signed up. If anybody needs help, ping me on Slack or whatever. So that gives you a little bit of sort of flexibility where that's concerned. And then you'll just use the mentor session Zoom link to be able to join. You don't need to use your private Zoom. You don't need to set up a Google Meet or anything like that. Just use that same Zoom link you use for group sessions to be able to hop on. You don't need a password or anything special like that. It's just a recurring meeting, so you can hop on to join and jump off anytime you need to. And then let's see here. Okay, and then the form. So after you have your session form, then you'll use this. The link for it is going to be in your Eridanus Student Leaders channel. I've got the study session form. I've got some frequently asked questions, some other resources bookmarked at the top. If you've been scrolling and it disappears, just mouse over and it'll show back up so you can get those bookmarks again. The form is going to look like this. You just put in the date and time of your session. So Andrea has her session on the 13th as the example, and then that's our host. And then the class is going to be for the Dorado class. And then participants, you'll just add the students' names. We have all of our currently active students listed in this, so you're going to see a whole lot of names that are completely unfamiliar. So that's fine. Just go ahead and you can either search for the class name and it'll minimize it down to just people who are in your class name, or it's also listed alphabetically. So you can search alphabetically. If you know the person's name, you can start typing in their name to be able to find it. So type in Dorian and it'll minimize it down to, it'll match the search for you. There's another question in chat, I think. Let me check that really quick and answer. Oh, if you don't have participants and it happens to be the only time you're available that week, no, it is not counted against you. So we just want you to have the hour offered. And if people decide not to attend, that's not on you. That's perfectly fine. So I would just be sure that you're communicating. That's part of those sort of leadership lessons that you'll learn, those leadership skills that you'll strengthen, is just communicating effectively with folks. So if you don't have any participants, nobody shows up and you have work of your own that you need to do, then that's fine. You can just be like, hey, I was in for my student study session. I know nobody signed up for it. I was hanging out. If nobody else needs me, I'm going to hop off early. And that's totally fine. Excellent question, Alberto. Thanks for asking that. So to complete the form, if there's a follow-up that's needed, just mark yes and put some details in down here. Otherwise, you can just mark no. If you wanted to keep notes for yourself, then you can always put notes in there. Whenever you mark yes and hit submit, then it'll email Diana to let her know, and it'll email in this information that you put in the further details. So any context or information you can share there will be very helpful to her. But marking yes, it'll email her so that way she'll be aware of whatever needs follow-up. Question about the process, sort of the logistics of it all? Okay. All right. So the last part's follow-up. This one has a lot of moving parts and it's going to feel overwhelming at first, but I promise it's just going to kind of fall into place for you in a little bit and it won't be quite so overwhelming. So at the end of each week, then Diana will be looking about that student progress to see, okay, we're in the middle of week 2 now, who still hasn't turned in their week 1 assignment, or we're in the middle of week 3 now, who still hasn't turned in their first or second assignment. So she's going to be taking a look at student progress throughout the class, and then she'll post in that student leaders channel to be able to give you an idea of who needs to be reached out to. So you'll have that list of names of students that need to be reached out to. You'll use a little raise hand emoji to be able to signal that this is the person that I personally will contact. Each of you doesn't need to contact every name on that list. You just pick a name or two off of that list and contact those couple of individuals. So the raise hand emoji is a way for you to signal, I'm the person who's going to contact this, so the other student leaders will know, okay, I don't need to contact that person, somebody else got them. And then once you have heard from them, then you just put a green check mark emoji on that same list. If you haven't heard from them within about a day of messaging them on Slack, then send them a second message just to see. If you still don't hear back from that second message, let Diana know, so that way we can follow up with them by email. It could be they're not familiar with Slack, they're not having a good time using it or comfortable using it. So we can reach out to them in some other avenue other than Slack to check on them and see how they're doing. So what is that going to look like? I am going to pull up the Dorado Student Leaders channel so that way you can kind of see what that is going to wind up looking like. So once Diana has her list of students who are behind, then she'll just put a little reminder below as the list of students that aren't on track as we would expect them to be. Use the raised hand emojis to be able to signal that you're the one who's going to contact them, and then check mark it when you've heard back from them. And I also will have a little guide in the pinned section of your channel to show you the different emojis as far as what to use to indicate, yeah, I heard back from them, here's what's going on. So for example, for the Dorado class back on October 9th, I posted the list, and initially it started out just being all of these students' names. So Attica, Elijah, Favor. And then when Alberto Reyes, different Alberto, reached out to Attica, then he went ahead and put his hand up symbol to know, so that the other student leaders would know, okay, Alberto's talking to Attica. And then he also took care of Elijah, and then Saul Casillo reached out to Favor. So it's just a way for you to be able to easily see from this list who's been contacted, who hasn't been contacted. And then Alberto wound up hearing back from Elijah, so he put a green check mark. And then Saul wound up hearing back from Favor, so he put a green check mark. And then he also put the little clock emoji, so that way we knew, okay, she was just short on time that week. That's fine. What we're trying to do with this method is to identify students who are consistently behind throughout the class to be able to help get them any supplemental support throughout the class so that we don't lose them completely. We'd like to have as many students completing the class on track as expected, or as possible rather. So being able to have this information as far as, you know, what are the obstacles in our way that, and what are the ones that we can clear is extremely helpful. So to jump back to the guide So you'll just do the raise hand when it says, I will reach out to this person. Check mark if you've reached out to them and they responded. And then the others are just ways for you to be able to indicate, okay, it's just sort of a one-off. They just have a busy week, so there's a clock. A question mark would be if they have a technical or a coding question. So that way we can tag mentors and say, hey, can you reach out to them for a one-on-one to help them get through that technical or coding blocker, that issue that's causing them to be delayed on getting things, learning things at the pace that they ought to. And then thundercloud is if they're just kind of going through a really rough personal time. And so it might be a few weeks. We've had some students that like wind up in the hospital for a procedure. And so the thundercloud lets us know, okay, it's going to be several weeks in a row that they might be behind, but then we'll be able to catch back up with them once the storm passes. And then the SOS is if you have a student that's like, I think I just really need to drop out, then the SOS is a signal for myself and Diana to be able to reach out to that student to say, hey, it's totally fine. Life happens. You know, when I was a student with Code the Dream, this very same thing happened. Like all of a sudden, family medical situation was completely different. I became a caretaker full time for somebody, and it just wasn't going to happen. And they were like, that's fine. Once life settles down and you're able to get back into it, just let us know. We'll get you into the next class after that. So the SOS will let us know somebody's considering dropping out. We need to approach them with the alternatives for where, when and where they can pick back up with their learning in the future. Questions about this? I know it's a ton of information. So if you have any questions about this part of the process, then feel free to shout them out. Okay. So when you reach out to them, it doesn't have to be anything particularly, worded in any particular way. I usually just sort of keep it open as far as like, I'm one of the student leaders, just wanted to check on you. Everything going okay? Is there anything that you need help with? That's much more approachable than, hey, Diana told me you were behind in class. Slap, slap, slap. So definitely approach it from a, we're here for you. Let's talk about if you need anything. And just as a reminder, no response within a day, send a second message, no response after the second message within about a day. Then just let Diana know so that way we can follow up through some other means and just do the check mark when you've actually heard back from the person. Okay, so the additional student resources that we've got in your channel for you, we have the link for the, oh good, actually it auto posted it, yay. Let me go ahead and pin this to your channel really quick. There we go. So you'll have the emoji key guide right there at the top in case you need a refresher of what icon am I supposed to use for this. Link to the study session form. And then I've got a student leader frequently asked question document that I have linked there. Looks like this, it's just a PDF file. Back before we started student leaders, I tended to get the same like 20 questions over and over again from all of the students as far as like, how do I find my lesson page? How do I find my class website? How do I know or find my coding assignment, my mindset assignment? How do I find the mentor session schedule? So all of those questions that are just sort of operational questions that a lot of students have, then I have them listed here with answers. So if you run into these questions and you're like, ooh, I'm not really sure, where do we find that at? Then you can take a look at this and then share that information as far as, oh yeah, it's here. This is where we find it at, to just kind of direct traffic and navigate people around. And then student resources, class website, and pre-class info. Those you probably have already seen. The class website, obviously, is your class website. The pre-class info is what you would have looked at before class started. That's that Gear Up for Class page. And so that has like tips for asking for help, class tools if somebody's not sure how to use Slack or Zoom, or for Replit or GitHub. Both of those are on there as well too. Learning to learn if they just need sort of some learning tips if they didn't cover this page before class. All of that kind of stuff is on there. And I've also got the student resources page, which you can find under class resources, student resources at the learn.codethedreamschool website. There are some like links to orientation recordings and that kind of stuff at the top. But down here in additional resources, then we have a whole grouping of, here are some GitHub tutorials. It's a YouTube series that'll help when you get to that topic in the week. There's a lot of stuff in here that isn't for your class because this is just where we were putting all of our resource materials for all of our classes. So if you see things for like SQL, don't worry about it unless you're wanting to teach yourself SQL. But they have things as far as like Replit and W3 schools, JavaScript exercises with W3 schools. When we get to using VS Code, then there's like little cheat sheets for that. Same thing for Git and GitHub, cheat sheets for which kind of commands you have to enter to be able to get it to do what you want it to do. All those kinds of things are available there if need be. So hopefully we've got plenty of tools available in case you need any tools. Hopefully orientations helped answer any of your questions, but that kind of concludes the orientation portion. So feel free to shout out any questions you have. We can have open dialogue about what do I do in these circumstances, anything like that.
I actually have a question. So in regards to the dates, are we provided with the dates, or should we like choose them, or how does it work?
Yeah, so you should choose them for whatever's best for your schedule. We want it to kind of work for whatever your plan is. So if you have a day of the week that you're going to be consistently doing, then go ahead and go with that. If you have an open schedule and you're trying to narrow it down, then just let us know and we can kind of take a look at what days and times students reported they were going to need sort of first choice availability for sessions at. So that way you can kind of help fill that gap if they were needing that. Does that help answer the question, Andrea?
Yeah, so should we like send you like first, like for example, if I don't know, I can do, let's say Thursdays are 10 p.m. I don't know, EST time. So for example, should I just notify you first and then you will post it on the spreadsheet?
Yeah, so you can actually just post it as a thread on, I'm going to go ahead and put a post up now so that way you can start putting your days and times in. And I can just follow that thread and add you all to the spreadsheet as you update me with your days and times. So let me just put, please post your days, times, include time zones for when you'd like to host your session. Okay. Oh, here. Okay, there we go. And I'll just go ahead and start the thread. Starting a thread. There we go. Some of you might be new as far as like using Slack and threads and what all of that means. So let me go ahead and show that really quick too. All right. So Eridanus student leaders, I just went ahead and posted here and you'll see sort of like this little sub reply underneath for the thread. So you just click on that and then you reply over here instead of over here. So that way it'll just keep everybody's answers about their days and times associated just with that particular post. It just kind of organizes your channel a little bit easier. Did everybody get that okay? You want me to run through it another time? Show it slower, anything like that? I have a bad habit of talking and moving fast when I'm excited. Okay. Oh, and Alberto had asked in chat, when are the hourly sessions expected to start? Ideally, we would start them this week, but I also know it's kind of sudden to have orientation, then hit the ground running tomorrow or the next day if you're doing a Thursday or a Friday session. So if you'd prefer to wait and start it the week of the 18th, that's fine. Just in that thread, say, I'll be doing Thursdays at 7 p.m., start me on the 19th, kind of a thing. And that way I'll know not to put you on the spreadsheet this week, but put you on the spreadsheet for next week. Any other questions? All right, well, that concludes orientation. I'm going to hang around in case there are any other questions that come up that people need. And otherwise, y'all are free to go. Have a great second week of class. Hopefully your first week went well. And just reach out to Diana or myself if you have questions about student leader stuff.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You
You
as
too,
well.
bye.
Bye-bye.